Once they can't move you, they can't use you. My friends, that's the whole story in one line. The moment you stop dancing, every time someone shakes your emotions, their power over you collapses. And funny enough, that's usually the moment they start walking back like, "Hey, how have you been?" Hey folks, imagine this. You're a puppet on a stage, and someone behind the curtain is pulling the strings. When they want attention, they yank one string. When they want control, they pull another. You laugh when they want you to laugh. You cry when they pull away. You run to them the second they go silent. But one day, mid-performance, you look up and realize the strings are actually in your hands. You were never just the puppet. You were the whole show. Or imagine this, you're a TV and they think they've got the remote. Volume up, you react. Volume down, you apologize. Change the channel. Suddenly you're confused, chasing answers. But then, one random Tuesday, the remote stops working. They press every button. Nothing. No reaction. No drama. Just your calm face on the screen. That's when they panic. Not because they lost love, but because they lost control. We're told a lot of lies about love and connection. If they come back, it means they care. If they're jealous, it means they love you. If you set boundaries, you'll lose them. Let's break that today. One of my favorite ideas is, love without respect is just a slow form of self-destruction. So many of you are not lacking love, you're lacking self-respect in the middle of love. You ignore red flags, you laugh off disrespect. You accept confusion as chemistry. You're not weak, you're just trained to believe that pain is part of passion. It's not, it's a pattern. And manipulators? They love that pattern. They love the version of you that thinks, if I just explain one more time, if I just forgive one more time, if I just stay a little longer, they'll finally see my worth. Here's the uncomfortable truth, my friends. Some people see your worth clearly. That's why they try to control it instead of honor it. The day you wake up and say, "I'm done explaining basic respect to a grown adult," something powerful starts shifting. You stop sending essays to people who reply with K. You stop waiting by your phone for dry texts from someone who posts all day but doesn't have time to talk to you. You stop treating their silence like a command and start treating it like information. And here's the plot twist. That's exactly when they feel it. They feel your energy pulling back. They feel your nervous system calming down. They feel that their favorite emotional toy, your reactions, is no longer on the shelf. They don't come back because God told them you're the one. Many times they come back because your peace makes them curious. Your silence suddenly gets louder than your begging ever did. Your new boundaries make them wonder, who are they becoming without me? You weren't born to be anybody's emotional customer service line. You're not a discount store for attention. You are allowed to be calm, clear, and unshakable. And when you become the person they can't manipulate, you finally see what this was always about. Not their return, but your rebirth. So stay with me, because in this video, we're going to talk about exactly what changes inside you, what happens in their mind when their tricks stop working, and how to hold your ground when they inevitably circle back. If this already hits home, type this in the comments so your brain starts to believe it. I choose my peace. Tap like, hit subscribe, stay with me till the end, because this time, my friends, the power is in your hands. Number 1. The moment their control stops working. The moment you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. My friends, that's the exact moment the story changes. Not when they leave, not when they ghost you, not even when they come back. The real turning point is the first time their favorite trick doesn't work on you anymore. It's the day they push the usual button and nothing lights up. No argument, no essay, no emotional meltdown, just your calm. That's when their control doesn't just weaken, it cracks. And here's the part most people never tell you. That crack doesn't start with them, it starts inside you. Imagine you're standing in a room full of light switches. Every switch has a label: guilt, jealousy, fear of being alone, fear of losing them, fear of being replaced. For the longest time, they learned exactly which switch gives them the reaction they want. If they wanted attention, they flipped the jealousy switch. If they wanted to shut you down, they flipped the guilt switch. If they wanted to keep you on standby, they flipped the fear of loneliness switch. You didn't even notice it. You just felt your emotions jump every time their hand moved. But one day, you walk into that room and realize something simple but powerful. You can cut the power to the entire board. Same switches, same labels, but now they are connected to your awareness, not your automatic reactions. Maybe it starts small. They ignore your message for hours, like they always do. Usually, your mind would go into overdrive. Did I say something wrong? Are they losing interest? Are they with someone else? You'd stare at your phone, replay conversations, blame yourself. But this time, the thoughts come, and instead of panicking, you pause. You ask yourself a different question. Why am I chasing someone who's comfortable making me feel like this? That one question is your first act of rebellion against their control. It doesn't feel big in the moment. It feels almost uncomfortable, like wearing a new pair of shoes. But something quietly shifts, and they feel it. They might not admit it, but they feel it. Folks, manipulators are very good at reading energy. They know when your world revolves around them. They know when your mood swings with their replies. They can sense it when you're scared to lose them. That fear used to be their favorite toy. So when your fear starts shrinking, they feel something missing. They'll think, why aren't they blowing up my phone anymore? Why aren't they begging for an explanation? Why aren't they freaking out like before? That confusion, that's the beginning of their discomfort. Of course, this doesn't happen without a fight inside you first. Let's be honest. Walking away from manipulation is not as simple as just being strong. You learn to attach your worth to their attention. You learn to measure your value by how quickly they replied, how often they called, how jealous they seemed. Part of you might still whisper, if I don't react, they'll think I don't care. If I stay calm, I might lose them for good. What if they move on to someone else who gives them everything I used to? Those are real fears. They are loud, and they're exactly the fears that kept you in their cycle for so long. Here's the hard truth. The cycle survives because you're afraid of what happens when you don't play your role anymore. You think, if I stop explaining, they'll believe their own lies about me. If I stop chasing, they'll think I never loved them. If I stop reacting, they'll think they won. That's the lie manipulation feeds on. It convinces you that your silence equals losing, that your calm equals defeat. But my friends, real defeat is staying in a game where the rules are designed to break you. Real defeat is letting someone else's chaos keep deciding your worth. Think of it like this. You've been stuck on a roller coaster that keeps making you sick. Every time they pull away, you drop. Every time they come close, you rise. Up and down, heart racing, stomach tight, mind spinning. One day, you finally say, I'm getting off. Not because the ride stopped, but because you decided to step out of the seat. The ride keeps moving, but you're no longer strapped in. It still looks dramatic from a distance, but inside your body it's quiet. That quiet feels strange at first. Your nervous system is so used to chaos that peace feels boring, empty, even scary. But that's just your mind detoxing from emotional addiction. They will test you when they sense this shift. Oh, they will. Maybe they toss a little insult to see if you defend yourself like before. Maybe they go silent to see if you'll chase. Maybe they come back with a sweet message just to see if your heart still jumps out of your chest the way it used to. They're not just contacting you, they're checking the system. Is the old version still there? Do my buttons still work? And when you respond calmly, or sometimes not at all, it unsettles them. Not because you're rude, but because you're different. You might worry, am I being cold? Am I turning into a bad person for not giving them the same emotional access? No, you're not becoming cold, you're becoming clear. There's a quote I love. I'm not hard-hearted, I'm just not easily handled anymore. That's the shift. You still care as a human, but you no longer allow that care to be used as leverage. You're not spiteful, you're selective. You're not emotionless, you're emotionally disciplined. Why is this so difficult? Because you are going against everything you were trained to believe. You were taught that good people always try one more time. You were taught that if you just love harder, they'll change. You were taught that walking away is quitting. But there's another side to that coin. Sometimes walking away isn't quitting, it's graduating. You're not dropping out of love, you're leveling up in self-respect. And once you step onto that level, you start realizing something. If your peace costs you a person, that person was never truly yours. Here's the beauty of this first moment when their control stops working. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. Nobody claps for you, but your spirit notices, your body notices, your mind notices. You sleep a little better, you check your phone a little less, you breathe a little deeper. You notice that your world doesn't collapse just because one person pulls away. And that realization is the beginning of real freedom. That's the moment your story stops being about how to keep them and starts being about how to keep yourself. And trust me, they feel that shift. They won't say, "Wow, you've grown, I can't control you anymore." No, their ego won't let them. Instead, they'll say things like, "You've changed, you're different now, you don't care like you used to." They'll frame your healing as a problem because it no longer serves their needs. But deep down, behind the pride, behind the attitude, a part of them knows the truth. The version of you they could easily manipulate doesn't exist anymore. So here's what I want you to do for yourself and for the person you're becoming. Take a deep breath, my friends, and let this line sink in. I do not exist to be controlled. You are not here to be anyone's emotional toy, anyone's backup plan, anyone's comfort zone when they're bored. You are here to live, to grow, to love in a way that doesn't require you to constantly bleed for approval. If this spoke to you, I want you to write this in the comments. Show yourself, show me, show the world around you that you're done being moved like a chess piece. I am done being controlled. Type it, own it, let your nervous system feel it. And stay with me, because once you understand this first moment, the next part will make even more sense. Why they chose you in the first place, and why your new strength scares them more than your old love ever did. Number 2, why they targeted you in the first place. They didn't pick you because you were weak. They picked you because you were powerful and didn't know it yet. My friends, that one line changes how you see the whole story, because the first lie people swallow after being used, played with, or manipulated is, "I was stupid. I was naive. I must be weak." No, you weren't weak. You were unprotected. There's a difference. Manipulators are not attracted to emptiness. They are attracted to abundance. They saw something in you they could feed off. Your empathy, your patience, your kindness, your willingness to see the best in people long after they've shown you their worst. That's not weakness, that's raw power with no guardrails. Picture this. You're like a house with all the lights on and the front door wide open, warm, welcoming, full of life. Most people would walk in respectfully, wipe their feet, appreciate the atmosphere. But then there are those who see the open door and think, perfect, no security. They notice the glow, not to admire it, but to exploit it. They didn't target you because you were empty. They targeted you because you had something real inside, something they didn't have, something they didn't want to build in themselves. It was easier to tap into your soul than to grow their own. You are the type who feels deeply. You replay conversations in your head. You ask yourself, did I say something wrong? Did I hurt them? Are they okay? You apologize even when the wound is bleeding on your side. You give people second chances, third chances, chances they never earned. You would rather carry pain than hand it to someone else. And that's beautiful in the hands of someone who loves you. But in the hands of someone who only wants control, that beauty becomes a doorway. They clock it immediately. This one will understand. This one will forgive. This one will fight to keep me, even when I'm the one causing the damage. They noticed how quickly you blamed yourself. They saw how you twisted yourself into knots to not be too much. They saw how scared you were of being abandoned, rejected, replaced. They heard the little fears you whispered about your past, your wounds, your insecurities. And instead of protecting them, they stored them like tools in a toolbox. Later, when they wanted an emotional reaction, they reached into that box. Silence here, criticism there, jealousy if needed, guilt if necessary. They didn't need magic. They just needed access. And you, being the honest soul you are, handed them access because you believed, if they know my pain, they'll protect it. That's the lie we're breaking right now. Not everyone who learns your hurt is planning to heal it. Some are just using it as a map. They follow your vulnerabilities like GPS, straight to your emotional core. That's why it felt like they always knew exactly what to say, when to pull away, when to reappear, when to play the victim. They weren't reading your mind. They were using what you already gave them when you trusted them. You might ask, but why me? Out of all people, why did they pick me? Because you made them feel something they don't feel easily. Safe, seen, important. You gave them emotional oxygen. They could be chaotic, inconsistent, dramatic, and you would still try to understand. You would still try to calm the storm for them. You thought you were supportive. They thought you were reliable supply. Harsh, but true. Your loyalty was their safety net. They knew that no matter how far they pushed, you'd still be there trying to fix it. To them, that meant, I can do what I want. They won't leave. Let's be real about something that hurts. A lot of manipulators don't actively sit down and say, I'm going to ruin this person. Many of them are just emotionally immature and ego-driven. They're used to people chasing them. They're used to being validated, forgiven, centered. When they met you, they found someone who would keep doing that at a deeper level than anyone else. You became their emotional spa, always open, always soothing, always available. They weren't thinking about your heart. They were thinking about their comfort. And you, my friends, were thinking, if I just love harder, they'll heal. If I just stay longer, they'll change. If I keep showing up, they'll finally see my value. That's not stupidity, that's hope. But hope without boundaries turns into self-betrayal. You kept giving them chances because you didn't want to believe that someone who looked into your eyes, who held your hand, who said the right words could also be using you. You didn't want to live in a world where people could be that selfish. So you protected the fantasy and blamed yourself when reality didn't match it. Here's what makes this even more difficult to accept. The traits they targeted are still the traits that make you special. Your empathy is not the problem. Your kindness is not the problem. Your loyalty is not the problem. The problem is directing those gifts at people who see your love as a resource, not a responsibility. You think, if I stop being so open, I'll become cold. No, the goal is not to shut down your heart. The goal is to give your heart standards. You are allowed to say, my softness has conditions now. You are allowed to say, my forgiveness has a limit. You are allowed to say, not everyone gets the version of me that sits up at midnight overthinking their silence. That doesn't make you heartless. That makes you wise. The reason they targeted you is exactly why, once you heal, you become absolutely untouchable, because a healed empath with boundaries is one of the most powerful beings on this planet. So instead of asking, why was I so stupid? Start asking, why did I think I had to earn basic respect? Instead of asking, why did they pick me? Start asking, what do I have that is so valuable they couldn't just walk away and leave it? When you flip those questions, you take your power back from the past and place it in your present. I want you to write something in the comments, not for me, but for you, so you can show yourself and the world around you that you're waking up to the truth. They chose me because I am valuable, and now I choose me. Let that be your reminder. They didn't target you because you were trash. They targeted you because you were a treasure with no lock on the box. The next part of this journey is where everything gets interesting, because once you start locking that box, once you stop being easy to access, their whole strategy starts to crumble. Number 3, when you stop dancing to their strings. Your silence isn't distance, it's dignity. My friends, that's the moment everything changes. Not when they block you, not when they unblock you, not even when they pop back up with a "Hey stranger." The real turning point is when you stop moving every time they snap their fingers, when you stop twisting your schedule, your feelings, your self-worth, just to keep their attention. That's the moment when you stop dancing to their music, and they finally realize the song is over. For so long, your life moved to their rhythm. If they were warm, you bloomed. If they went cold, you froze. One dry message could ruin your whole day. One scene with no reply, and your mind would spiral into 100 ugly questions. What did I do? Are they bored of me? Are they with someone else? You were constantly on emotional standby, just waiting for the next cue. If they pulled away, you leaned in. If they grew distant, you grew desperate. They led, you followed. They decided, you reacted. And you didn't call it a dance, you called it love. Imagine for a second you're at a party where the music is always changing. Fast, slow, and every time the DJ changes the track, you have to adjust. You're exhausted, but you keep going because you think, if I stop dancing, they'll leave me on the edge of the room alone. That's exactly how manipulation feels. You change your speed, your style, your soul, just to stay in step with someone who never once asked, "Does this song suit you?" Then one day, something inside you gets tired in a deeper way. Not just, "I need a nap" tired, but "I need a new life" tired. You notice how your stomach tightens when you see their name. You notice how your shoulders tense when they take too long to respond. You notice how you keep rehearsing speeches in your head to defend yourself against accusations that aren't even true. And a small, quiet voice inside you asks, "Why am I working this hard just to not lose someone who isn't afraid to lose me?" That question is the first step off their dance floor. At first, you don't stop everything. You just slow down. You don't rush to reply within seconds. You don't write a novel when they send a dry K. You don't rearrange your entire day for someone who can't even decide what they want from you. You start noticing the pattern. They pull back, your anxiety climbs, they return, and you exhale like they're oxygen. But they're not oxygen, they're a habit, and habits can be broken. The fear kicks in right here. Your mind will try to drag you back into the dance. If I don't reply fast, they'll think I don't care. If I don't chase, they'll find someone else. If I don't explain myself, they'll tell everyone I'm the problem. That fear is powerful because it's built from past wounds. Times you were abandoned, times you were blamed, times when being quiet really did cost you something. So your nervous system believes that stillness equals danger. That's why choosing not to react feels hard. It's not just about them, it's about every unhealed version of you that still thinks love is something you have to earn by shrinking. Here's the truth that stings but sets you free. If someone only stays because you're constantly overperforming, over-explaining and over-giving, they're not with you, they're with the performance. You became the show and they became the critic. Every time you tried to sit down and rest, they would go cold, pull away, or act distant, just enough to make you stand up and start dancing again. That's not a relationship, that's emotional theater. And you were burning yourself out on a stage they didn't even respect. The day you stop dancing, they feel it. They send a half-hearted message, and instead of you jumping on it like a lifeline, you answer calmly hours later, or maybe not at all. They throw a subtle jab, and instead of rushing to defend yourself, you let it fall flat. They go quiet, and instead of writing 10 paragraphs in your head, you go about your evening. They don't know what to do with that version of you, because suddenly their favorite moves don't get the same results. The puppet put down the strings. The TV stopped responding to the remote. The DJ lost the crowd. They might accuse you of changing. They might say, "You're different now. You don't care like you used to." But read this clearly, my friends. You didn't stop caring. You stopped collapsing. You didn't stop loving. You stopped sacrificing yourself to prove it. You didn't become cold. You became conscious. Conscious of how much it cost you to always be the one fixing, chasing, apologizing, proving your worth to someone who never had to prove theirs. Is it hard? Absolutely. Part of you still wants to jump when they show up. The old reflex is still there. What if this time it's different? What if this time they really mean it? You're not made of stone. Your heart remembers the laughs, the late-night talks, the soft moments. But here's where you rise. You stop using the good moments as excuses to tolerate the bad pattern. You start saying, yes, there were good times, but that doesn't erase the manipulation. You let the whole truth sit in the room, not just the pretty parts. Something beautiful happens when you stop dancing to their strings. You start hearing your own music again. You notice what you like, what you need, what you will and won't accept. You start reclaiming small parts of yourself, your hobbies, your focus, your peace. You realize you can go a whole day without checking if they watched your story. You catch yourself laughing at something unrelated to them and you feel a shock of relief. That's your soul saying, "Thank you for giving me my life back." And yes, they usually come back harder when they feel you slipping away. The ego hates losing an audience. But now you're not a desperate fan. You are the main character in your own life again. Their drama might still knock on your door, but your hands no longer reach for the handle every time. You look through the peephole first. You ask, is this peace or is this another storm in disguise? I want you to claim this shift out loud for yourself, so your brain and your heart get on the same page. Go to the comments and write, "I'm done dancing for their approval." Show yourself. Show me, show the world around you that you're stepping off that emotional stage. Because once you stop dancing to their strings, the whole power structure flips. And in the next part, you'll see exactly what starts happening in their mind when you finally step out of their choreography. Number 4. What happens in their mind when you detach? They were never afraid of losing you. They were afraid of losing their control over you. My friends, That's the truth most people never say out loud. When you finally start to detach, when you stop reacting, stop chasing, stop pouring your entire soul into their half-hearted effort, something starts happening in their mind that you don't get to see. On the outside, they may look calm, unbothered, living their best life, but inside, the wiring starts to glitch. The script they trusted stops working, and their ego does not handle that well. For a long time, they thought they had you figured out like a formula. Ignore you, you panic. Give you crumbs, you cling. Pull away, you pull closer. They could predict your reactions almost down to the minute. It made them feel powerful, important, in control. But then you changed the formula. You stopped sending the paragraphs. You stopped justifying yourself. You stopped blowing up their phone when they started acting distant. You felt your feelings, yes, but you didn't hand them the remote anymore. That's when their internal alarm quietly starts ringing. Imagine their mind as a control room full of buttons with your name on them. Jealousy, guilt, silent treatment, hot and cold. Every time they wanted a reaction, they'd hit one of those buttons and watch the emotional chaos unfold. But now they hit jealousy, nothing. They hit silent treatment, you go live your life. They hit guilt. And instead of apologizing just to keep the peace, you say, "That's not on me." To them, it feels like the whole control panel just went offline. They're pressing harder, faster, but the screen is blank. No response, no emotional spike, just static. At first, they brush it off. They're just busy. They'll come around. They always do. Their ego leans on history. You've come back before. You forgave before. You folded before. But the more your new behavior stays consistent, the more a strange feeling creeps in. Uncertainty. And manipulators hate uncertainty. They hate the thought, maybe I don't have them like I thought I did. That idea pokes a hole right through their inflated sense of power. Questions start appearing in their mind, the same kinds that used to torture you. Why aren't they reacting? Did they meet someone else? Are they over me? Did I push too far? They might stalk your social media a little more than they'd ever admit. They look at your stories, your posts, your comments, not because they suddenly developed deep emotional maturity, but because they're scanning for clues. Are they still attached to me? Can I still get a rise out of them if I try? There's a quote that fits perfectly here. When you stop playing the fool, you become the mirror. Once you detach, you stop being their toy and start being their reflection. Your calm reflects their chaos. Your silence reflects their immaturity. Your boundaries reflect their lack of respect. They can't hide from that when they're alone. In front of friends, they might say, "I don't care, I'm fine, I'm better off." But at night, when the noise dies down, their own mind replays the things you said, the effort you gave, the times you were there when no one else was, and they notice something ugly. They took it for granted. That realization doesn't always show up as remorse at first. Sometimes it shows up as irritation. They'll tell themselves, who do they think they are, ignoring me? Acting all calm like they don't care. Your peace feels like disrespect to someone who was used to you crumbling. Your emotional distance feels like an attack to someone who once fed their ego on your availability. They may even try to provoke you just to see if there's still a crack in your armor. A subtle jab, a shady post, a delayed reply paired with a public display of "I'm doing great." All of it is bait. All of it is them trying to regain the feeling of "I still matter enough" to destabilize them. But when you don't give them that, something starts to crack deeper. They start comparing. Not just you to others, but how they felt with you versus how they feel now. With you, they had a soft landing. Someone who listened, forgave, cared, stayed. With others, it might feel shallow, performative, temporary. You gave them depth. Chaos can't replace depth. It can only distract from it for a while. And when the distractions quiet down, that's when they feel the absence of your emotional gravity. They might not miss you in a way Instagram would recognize. No long quotes about you, no public breakdown, no movie-style apology. But they miss the stability you brought, even if they never said, "Thank you." They miss the way you made them feel important, even when they did nothing to earn that role. They miss knowing that no matter how messy they were, someone out there still cared. And now that someone is no longer at their emotional beck and call, that's not just loss. To their ego, that's humiliation. Here's the wild part, folks. Detachment doesn't just expose them, it educates them. Your absence becomes the lesson they didn't want, but secretly needed. They learn that you were not clingy, you were committed. You weren't too sensitive, you were intuitive. You weren't overreacting, you were reacting to disrespect they wanted to ignore. They might never say those words out loud, but their behavior tells on them. The way they hover, the way they send a random message, the way they test the waters with "hey" after months of silence. That's not confidence, that's curiosity mixed with discomfort. And you? You are seeing all of this from a different place now. You're not begging for their awareness anymore. You're not secretly hoping they wake up and suddenly become who you pictured in your head. You're watching their confusion from the shore while they struggle in waters they once pushed you into. You are no longer drowning in that sea. You're drying off, learning to swim somewhere else, somewhere quieter, somewhere safer. I want you to claim this shift, right here, right now, because even if you can't see what's happening in their mind, you can choose what happens in yours. Go to the comments and write, "My detachment is my protection." Show yourself that you're not being cold for stepping back, you're being wise. And stay with me, because in the next part, we'll talk about the version of you that rises from this, calm, unavailable, unmoved, and why that version is the one they never saw coming and can no longer reach the same way again. Number 5. Your new identity. Calm, unavailable, unmoved. Once you become peace, chaos can't afford you anymore. My friends, that's the version of you they never planned for. They knew how to handle the old you, the one who over-explained, overgave, and overthought every silence. But this new identity, the one that walks with calm in places you used to shake, the one that doesn't jump every time their name appears on your screen, that version of you is not just harder to reach, it's impossible to manipulate. Before, your heart was like an open cafe with the lights always on. They could walk in at any hour, sit down, order your attention, your time, your forgiveness. You didn't close. You didn't set hours. You didn't have a sign that said, "We're full," or "We're closed." If they messaged at 2 a.m., you answered. If they pulled you into an argument at midnight, you stayed up defending yourself. If they left you on red, you stayed emotionally open just in case they came back. Now, things are different. The cafe is still beautiful inside, still warm, still full of light, but there's a door, there are boundaries, and there's a sign that reads, "Not everyone gets a table here." Your calm is not about pretending you don't feel anything. It's about refusing to let every feeling drag you into chaos. You still care, you still love deeply, but you don't let that love become a leash around your neck. When they take hours to reply, you don't crumble. When they act distant, you don't chase. When they try to power play you with silence, you don't fold into panic. You may notice it, you may feel a little sting, but your identity is no longer built on whether they respond or not. Your identity has moved from, "I hope they choose me," to, "I already chose me." This is where people start misunderstanding you. They say, "You've changed. You're colder now. You don't care like you used to." But that's not true. You've just stopped being emotionally available to disrespect. You've stopped offering VIP treatment to people who show up with cheap energy. You're not colder, you're clearer. There's a quote that fits perfectly here. I didn't lose my heart, I just stopped handing it to people who drop it. That's you now. You've become emotionally unavailable to manipulation. That doesn't mean you're shut down to love, it means you're shut down to games. There's a big difference. You're still kind, but you're not naive. You're still generous, but you're not easily drained. You still show up, but only for those who show up too. You've learned that your time is not a charity for those who only come around when they need an ego boost. Think of yourself like a house on a hill now. Before, anyone could walk up, knock, walk in, make a mess, and leave. Now there's a gate, not a wall, not a prison, a gate. The right people, the ones who respect your space, will come to the gate, knock with respect, and wait. The wrong people will shake the gate, rattle it, demand access, act offended that it's even there. Your job is not to explain why you built the gate. Your job is to keep it there. Why is this new identity so uncomfortable at first? Because you've spent years linking your worth to how much you could endure. You thought being ride or die meant staying even when your soul was slowly dying. You thought being loyal meant letting people walk over you as long as they called it love. You thought being forgiving meant never drawing the line. So when you finally start choosing peace, your mind whispers, is this selfish? Am I being unfair? Am I turning into the bad guy? No, my friends, you're not the villain for protecting your peace. You're not the bad guy for becoming selective. You're not wrong for saying, if your love always comes with confusion, it's too expensive for me now. The world might not clap for it, but your nervous system will. Your sleep will, your future will, and here's the part they didn't expect. When you become calm, unavailable, unmoved, it doesn't just protect you, it exposes them. Your lack of reaction shows how dependent they were on your emotional roller coaster. Your lack of chasing shows how much they relied on your fear of losing them. Your groundedness highlights their instability. Your clarity makes their games look ridiculous. They can no longer say, you're overreacting, because you're not reacting at all. They can't say, you're crazy, because you're steady and they're the one reaching, testing, poking. They'll try their usual tactics, random messages, nostalgic memories, the I miss us card, maybe even the I've changed speech. But now, you don't fall for words without evidence. You don't get swept away by a paragraph that someone couldn't back up with consistent behavior. You read their messages through a new lens. Does this line up with who they really are? Or is it just another string they're trying to pull? And if it doesn't line up, you don't fight with them, you just step back. This version of you is rare. This version of you can sit in silence without spiraling. This version of you can feel lonely without crawling back into toxic company. This version of you can love someone and still walk away if they keep harming your peace. That's not being heartless. That's being healed enough to say, I matter here too. You are no longer driven by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being replaced, fear of being misunderstood. You understand now that it's better to be alone in truth than surrounded by people in lies. Better to be misunderstood while safe than understood in a place that keeps breaking you. Your heart is no longer up for negotiation just because someone is uncomfortable losing their grip on you. I want you to own this new identity, not just listen to it like a story. You are not just a character in their life anymore, you are the main character in your own. So, my friends, if this resonates with where you are or where you're trying to go, write this in the comments and let it echo back to you every time you see it. I am calm, I am protected, I am unmoved. Show yourself, show me, and show the world around you that you are stepping into this identity fully. And stay with me, because the next part is where things get even more revealing, when this new version of you stands firm, and they finally try to come back with tests, bait, and I've changed stories they never imagined you'd be strong enough to see through. Number 6. Their return. Tests, bait, and I've changed. They don't come back because they woke up. They come back because you did. My friends, that's the part nobody warns you about. People talk about breakups, about healing, about moving on, but they rarely talk about the moment when the very person who twisted your emotions suddenly shows up acting curious, sweet, nostalgic, or changed. Not because they finally saw your worth out of nowhere, but because your energy shifted. Your silence got louder than your begging ever did. Your peace became more interesting than your pain. In the beginning, their return never looks like manipulation. It looks like a notification, a simple "hey" after months, a random heart reaction to your story, a song sent that you both used to share. On the surface, it looks harmless, almost innocent, but underneath, it's a test. They're not just checking in, they're checking access. Do I still live rent-free in your mind? Can I still pull you back into orbit? Can I still make you drop everything just because I appeared? Imagine they're a fisherman, and your heart used to be the most predictable fish in the lake. They knew exactly what bait worked. Silence, jealousy, guilt, pity, late-night "I miss you" messages. They'd throw in the line, and you'd bite every time because you were starved for clarity, connection, closure. Now, after you've worked so hard to build your peace, they throw the line in again, a memory, a compliment, a half apology. They're not just being kind, they're watching to see, does the fish still bite? You'll feel it in your body when it happens. The old version of you will jump for a second, your heart will stutter, your mind will whisper, what if they finally get it? What if this is the conversation I always wanted? What if this is our second chance? You might stare at the message, reread it a few times, feel that familiar mix of hope and fear. This is where you have to be brutally honest with yourself. Are they reaching for your heart, or just for their favorite emotional toy? Let's break a lie right here. If they come back, it means they care. No, my friends, sometimes coming back just means they're uncomfortable with the space they created. Sometimes it means the new person didn't give them the same emotional high. Sometimes it means their ego is bruised because you stopped chasing. Care is shown in consistency, accountability, and respect, not in sudden, random appearances whenever their life gets quiet. They might lead with nostalgia. I was just thinking about that time That's bait. Nostalgia is one of the softest hooks. It doesn't attack you. It disarms you. It makes you remember the highlight reel and forget the behind the scenes. They don't mention the nights they went silent, the arguments they twisted, the way your anxiety spiked every time they pulled away. They bring up the warm moments because they know your heart is more likely to answer from memory than from logic. Or they use vulnerability. I've been going through a lot. I'm not okay. No one understands me like you do. And because you are who you are, someone with a big heart, you feel that tug. You've always been soft for their pain. You've always wanted to be the safe place for them. But now you have to ask a harder question. Is this vulnerability or strategy? Are they truly ready to own their behavior, or are they just using sadness as a shortcut back into your life? Regret without responsibility is just performance. Then there's the classic, "I've changed." And maybe they believe that when they say it. Maybe they've had some lonely nights. Maybe they've posted some quotes. Maybe they've thought about you more than they want to admit. But change is not proven in a message. Change is proven in patterns. If they're still dodging accountability, still twisting things back on you, still uncomfortable when you mention your boundaries, that's not change. That's a rebrand. Same product, new packaging. Why is this stage so dangerous? Because it hits you right where your old wounds live. You remember all the nights you wished they'd realize what they had, all the times you prayed they would come back different. When they finally pop up, it feels like the universe is answering that prayer. But sometimes the universe isn't saying, "Here, take them back." Sometimes it's saying, "Here, this is your final exam. Have you really grown, or will you repeat?" You're not required to respond with hate. You don't have to be cold or cruel. Stoic resilience is not about pretending you don't care at all. It's about caring with wisdom. It's about knowing that just because someone reaches for you doesn't mean they're ready to respect you. You are allowed to answer slowly. You are allowed to be neutral. You are allowed to ask direct questions like, "What exactly is different now?" and watch if they answer with depth or with vague lines designed to sound deep but say nothing. And yes, you're allowed to not respond at all. Silence is also a response. People will say, "That's petty, that's childish," but they weren't there when you were crying over messages that never came. They weren't there when you stayed loyal to someone who treated you like a backup plan. You're not obligated to reopen a chapter that nearly destroyed you just because the other character suddenly wants a rewrite. What unsettles them the most is not that you're angry. Anger is still engagement. What rattles them is your emotional distance. The old you would have written paragraphs, asked for explanations, jumped at the chance to fix things. The new you reads the message, feels the emotion, and then asks, "Does this align with the peace I've built?" Your decision is no longer based on, "Do I still love them, but can I trust them with my peace?" That shift is huge. Here's something to remember. Someone coming back into your life is not a trophy. It's a test. The real flex is not bragging, "They always come back." The real flex is calmly saying, "They came back, and I still chose myself." That's when you know you've changed the story from manipulation to mastery. That's when your growth stops being theoretical and becomes real, visible, grounded. So, my friends, the next time a "Hey stranger," a late night "I miss you," or an "I've changed" pops up on your screen, I want you to pause and remember everything you survived to get to this level of peace. You didn't crawl out of that darkness just to dive back in because someone suddenly remembered you exist. If this hit home for you, go to the comments and write, "I choose me now." Show yourself, show me, show the world around you that you're not just waiting for their return. You're ready to choose your own peace over recycled chaos. And stay with me, because the next part is where we step fully into that stoic resilience, where your responses start coming from strength, not fear, and where their tests no longer shake the foundation you've built. Number 7, stoic resilience. How you respond now. Your real power isn't what you say to them. It's what you no longer let them do to you. My friends, that's the heart of stoic resilience in relationships. It's not just about going silent or cutting someone off. It's about who you become on the inside when they circle back, when the tests come, when the bait is thrown, when the old patterns knock on your door and invite you to dance again. Stoic resilience is not a cold mask. It's a calm core. It's the quiet decision. I will not let anyone drag me back into the version of myself I worked so hard to outgrow. Imagine you're sitting in a room and someone keeps throwing emotional darts at you. In the past, every dart hit because you stood there with your arms open, heart exposed, trying to reason with the thrower. You cried, argued, begged, explained, hoping they would stop once they understood how much it hurt. But now you've stepped behind a glass wall. The darts still come, sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of ego, but they bounce off. You see them. You feel the impact on the glass. but they don't pierce you the same way. That glass wall is your emotional discipline. Stoic resilience doesn't mean you don't feel anything when they reach out. You will feel something. You're human, not a robot. Your heart will remember the good moments. Your mind will try to create what-if stories again. What if they're serious this time? What if this is our second chance? What if I'm being too harsh? You might even feel guilty for not responding like the old you. That's the tug-of-war between your old patterns and your new standards. Here's where you break the lie. You've been taught that love means always being available, always being open, always giving people endless chances. You've been trained to believe that if you don't respond, you're cold. If you don't rush back, you're bitter. If you don't explain yourself, you're immature. But that's not truth. That's conditioning. Real love includes responsibility. Real love includes respect. And real self-love sometimes sounds like, no, not again. Stoic resilience is the moment you stop making decisions based on fear. Not fear of losing them, not fear of being alone, not fear of being misunderstood. Instead, you make decisions based on alignment. Does this energy match the peace I am building? Does this behavior match the words they're saying? Does this offer feel like growth or like going backwards? You don't have to scream the answers. You just quietly adjust your choices accordingly. Picture your peace like a house you're renovating. You've spent months cleaning out old rooms, throwing away broken furniture, repainting walls, installing locks, making it beautiful and safe again. Then one day, the same person who trashed the place before shows up with a small plant and goes, "Let me in, I've changed." Stoic resilience is you looking at that plant, appreciating the gesture, but still asking, are you coming with respect this time, or with the same chaos? Because one plant doesn't pay for all the damage you caused last time. Your response now doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't need to write a speech or prove how strong you've become. Resilience is quiet. It's in the pause before you answer. It's in the choice to breathe before you react. It's in the decision to say less and observe more. You no longer overshare your heart with someone who doesn't know how to hold it. You don't rush to defend yourself when they twist things. You don't explain your worth to someone who has shown they can't see it. Is it hard? Oh yes. Every part of you that once craved their validation will scream. The old you will whisper, just reply. Just give them one more chance. Just prove you're not the bad guy. But the new you knows something different now. Peace is more valuable than being understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. Freedom is more valuable than being chosen by someone who only chooses you when it's convenient. Stoic resilience looks like this in real life. You see the message and you don't drop everything. You hear their apology and you look for patterns, not just promises. You feel the pull of the past and still choose the future you're building. You remember how far you've come and you refuse to shrink just to fit back into their comfort zone. You stop needing their closure because you already gave it to yourself. The closure came the day you realized, I wasn't crazy, I was just treated poorly. The closure came the moment you stopped blaming yourself for their choices. The closure came when you chose to heal, even without an apology. So now, when they show up late with words they should have said years ago, you don't fall to your knees and say, finally. You simply say, I've already buried that version of me. The most powerful thing about Stoic resilience is this: they don't get to decide your value anymore. Whether they stay or go, praise or ignore, commit or disappear, you don't crumble. You've anchored yourself in something deeper than their attention. You've anchored yourself in self-respect. And that, my friends, is the real win. Not that they came back, but that you no longer revolve around them when they do. Not that they finally said the right words, but that you no longer need those words to feel whole. Not that they regret losing you, but that you don't regret choosing you. So right now, if anything in this journey through silence, detachment, and resilience spoke to your soul, I want you to declare it. Go to the comments and write, "I choose my peace and my power." Let your fingers write what your heart is ready to live. Show yourself, show me, and show the world around you that you are done being manipulated, done being controlled, done being pulled in circles by someone else's ego. And if this message helped you, if it felt like someone finally put your feelings into words, do me a favor from the heart. Hit that like button so this finds more people who are stuck in the same cycle. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next time we sit down and talk truth like this. And share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that silence, boundaries, and calm are not weakness, they're power. If you feel moved to go even further in supporting this work, you can also tap the Super Thanks button and contribute in whatever way feels right to you. But most importantly, keep choosing yourself. Because once your peace becomes non-negotiable, you don't chase, you don't beg, you simply rise.